A little known game development fact is that the S in FPS stands for shooter, and so that actually implies that the game needs guns. I'm making a split screen FPS in Unity, and so I guess that means I need guns. I wonder where I'll get those. I'll make do. Hi and welcome to the channel. I'm making a split screen FPS called Couch Combat, and if you subscribe, that'll boost my ego, which I'm pretty sure is a good thing. Couch Combat is entirely local multiplayer, and you fight your friends in short, chaotic rounds. Anyways, I just spent the last month of my life developing online multiplayer. Plus, I made an entire devlog over it, and it seems like most of my viewers want online multiplayer. So, I decided to put it on hold indefinitely. I know that I've been ridiculously back and forth on online multiplayer, but I legitimately don't think it's even possible for me to do with the current state of the game and my current programming skills. And I absolutely hate trying to make netcode. So, instead of accidentally subjugating this project to the deep pits of development hell, I decided to move on. I'll talk more about this decision and the future of online multiplayer in the game later on in this devlog. But for now, just know that it's not my focus. And in order to move on from online multiplayer, I completely reverted the project back to around a month ago. So here I am, 1 month of development down the drain, and nothing to show for it but a few 3D models. So let's go ahead and put these models to good use and make a brand new area for the game, the fantasy area. And by the way, it would be extremely helpful if you would go and wishlist my game on Steam. Wishlisting the game is extremely helpful for me. If I have a lot of wishlists whenever I release the game, then Steam will boost in the algorithm, which is incredibly helpful for a game like me that doesn't have any marketing budget. Wishlisting is free and highly appreciated. It's the best way to show support for the channel. And back to the video. In Couch Combat, there are a lot of small stages that you can play on. These stages are separated into areas that are themed around movie genres. Currently, the game has 3 finished areas: the Samurai area, the Outrun area, and the Western area. This new area is modeled after fantasy movies and media and will have such fantastical elements such as tree, house, and mushroom. And I'm introducing a new mechanic to the game that is exclusive to this area: elemental potions. These potions will be spawned at set locations on fantasy maps, and whenever you pick one up, it will temporarily give you a status effect based on the very real fantasy table of elements. I shamelessly stole this idea from Avatar, and there's no way for Nickelodeon to sue me, because they're too busy making the 15th CGI SpongeBob spin-off that appeals to 3-year-olds. I started out the development of the new area by just cataloging what models I had already created and putting them into a new prototyping stage. I figured this new fantasy area will require much less models than the other ones, because I can reuse old models as long as I make sure to change the materials a bit first. And this was completely wrong, and I ended up making more models for this area than any other one. In the early phases of this stage, I was still messing around with the overall look of it. I thought about having a sunset skybox, but I couldn't get it to look good. And I also tried adding clouds to make the floating islands look a bit more like floating islands, but it also didn't really look good. So I ultimately settled on making it nighttime and making the mushrooms glow. I also added some cool firefly particles to the stages, which I ended up toning down later. But now it was finally time to put together the first stage. So I did, and then I put together a second stage, and then I put together a third stage, and yeah, making stages is a super repetitive task that isn't really all that interesting to hear about from devlogs, but I'm getting seriously fast at it. I ended up making all 8 stages for the fantasy area in just over 4 days, and for context, it took me over 2 weeks to do the western area, over a month to do the outrun area, and like 6 months to do the samurai area. But that one doesn't really count because I was doing a lot of other stuff at the time. And real quick, this gets me back to dropping online multiplayer. I spent over a month on it and got nowhere, so all the progress that you see in this devlog happened about 2 weeks. So I basically have the choice to either spend all my time working on online multiplayer, which I hate doing, and ultimately releasing the game with way less content, or I could make many more areas, guns, and maybe even a new game mode and some new gimmicks, and actually enjoy development. So yeah, the choice was pretty obvious for me. But for people that have to use online multiplayer to play, I will dedicate some time to setting up Steam Remote Play. It's not perfect, but you can play online multiplayer with friends if you both have pretty good connections. And also I might try out Photon for Unity, which could be easier to use than Mir, but I have no idea. I doubt it'll make that big of a difference. Anyways, in just about 4 days, I had the entirety of the fantasy area complete. This wasn't because I rushed it though. It was just spring break and I had nothing better to do. So while this new area looks pretty nice, it's basically the same as the others so far, so it's time to seriously set it apart with a brand new mechanic: potions. This is the first time I made a new mechanic from scratch in a very long time for Couch Combat, so I'm a little rusty, but I plan on going back and adding some new gimmicks to the older stages to make them more interesting as well. I think a unique melee katana weapon would be really cool for the samurai area. And the outrun area could receive a sort of kill streak mechanic. The western area just needs a lot more explosives though. The potions are spawned by cauldrons around the map. They are somewhat randomized in when they are created, but it's never too long. And while the potion is being brewed, you can see what element is going to be created next by looking at the color of the fluid and bubbles. There are 4 elemental potions and 1 special one. Each potion has a few positive effects with 1 drawback. Water makes you slide much further while playing a splashing sound, and it also makes you heal for half of the damage that you deal with your gun. I think this fits with the water theme somewhat, but it also reduces how much damage your guns deal. Earth gives you defense that decreases all damage taken, and also increases your punching damage and knockback by a lot. But it also makes you drop your gun and be completely unable to use guns until it wears off. It's a lot of fun. Fire gives your gun a fire effect, which increases its damage and makes it deal a fire debuff that causes damage over time. But having the potion also burns away your health while you have it. Finally, air makes you move faster and double jump, but increases how much damage you take. But there is one more potion. It's the Combatant potion. When drinking it, you have a 50% chance to gain all the positive effects of all elements with no drawbacks, which makes you super powerful. But you also have a 50% chance of gaining all the drawbacks of the elements with no positives, which is significantly less fun. But I think this adds a fun element of luck to the game that is good for party games like Couch Combat. When it comes to development, a lot of time is spent on polish. The UI has smooth animations and a bar at the top that indicates how much longer you have left. And it also has lots of particle effects, although I'm still working on a few of them, and a bunch of new sound effects too. In the title and beginning of this video, I was talking about all the new weapons I made, and these potions are sort of weapons, I guess, but I am also in the process of adding a ton of new guns to the game. Admittedly, I'm probably working on too many of them at once, which is sort of slowing down the whole process a bit, but it's fun, so whatever. First off, the Magic Tome of Fire. I started last Devlog, and it's still pretty inconsistent with seeking and a bit unpolished, plus it blocks your vision. But I think it's a pretty unique weapon for an FPS that just needs a bit more polish to get right. Secondly, the bow. It's a bow, and it's also completely unfinished. It's basically just a model in Blender right now, and it'll require me adding a lot more code to my player shooting script to improve it. And by the way, the player shooting script is getting way too long now. I'm trying to separate it into smaller ones, but it takes a long time, and I don't really feel like doing that, so it'll probably just keep getting longer and longer. Next up is the Boomer, which is a 2D pixel art shotgun like Doom. I still need to make the animations for it, but it's basically done. And next is my favorite, the minigun. The minigun is an absolute beast. It takes forever to charge up and makes you walk slowly, but it shoots incredibly fast when charged up, and it doesn't have to reload. The minigun is basically done. It just needs some final polish and new sound effects. And now that we're near the end of this devlog, I'm going to be doing something new. Well, it's not really new. I'm completely stealing this idea from Obvious Dev, who makes devlogs which are pretty spicy. But basically, you all can now vote on which of these 3 features that you want me to add in the next devlog. I'll probably get around to all 3 of them eventually, but whichever one wins will be done first. The options are 1. Finish making the Boomer shotgun. 2. Add some goofy animations of players moving around the background of the main menu. And 3. Add a new type of explosive to the western area. So, what's next for the game? Well, I think I'm going to try to polish up the main menu, settings, and other stuff, and then I'll release a long overdue patch for the demo on Steam that should fix a bunch of the glaring issues with it. Then I'm just going to grind content, as I have a ton of new ideas, and more content is always better. Thank you for watching, and be sure to subscribe, and also join my Patreon if you want to support development of the game or whatever. And thanks to my Patreon, Howard House, who really is what makes the ButWhyLevin channel into a home. Bye.